Imagine a time when farmers relied solely on intuition, tradition, and unpredictable weather patterns to grow their crops. A shift in the wind, a change in soil texture, or the color of the leaves were the only signals for what lay ahead. Today, agriculture has transformed into a high tech industry where data is the most powerful tool in the farmer's hands. Every crop is influenced by a complex web of factors: soil composition, climate variability, genetic traits, pests, and diseases, all of which can now be measured, analyzed, and predicted with precision. Satellites monitor fields from space, sensors track moisture levels in real time, and AI models can forecast yields with unprecedented accuracy. Behind these breakthroughs are data scientists, uncovering patterns in plant genetics, decoding the impact of climate on crops, and accelerating the development of more resilient, high yield seeds. Their work is shaping the future of farming, making agriculture smarter, more efficient, and more sustainable than ever before. Today, we will learn about the role of data and data scientists in the world of agriculture. Welcome back to Career Calling, your ultimate guide to navigating the world of work, one profession at a time, to help you find your calling and turn it into a career. I'm your host, Pratibha Pandit. My guest today is Amanda Ramcharan, a data science leader in agriculture space. With global experience across diverse farming systems, from subsistence farming to large-scale industrial operations, Amanda applies data science, weather analytics, and environmental modeling to enhance productivity and sustainability. As a passionate science communicator, Amanda joins us today to share the role of data in agriculture and what it takes to build a data career in the field. Hi, Amanda. Welcome to Career Calling.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I have come across, or I work with a lot of data scientists in the tech field for many years. And today I'm
Yeah,
really excited to learn about the data science field and then how data gets used in the agriculture field. So let's get
sure.
started from the very basics. Can you just quickly tell about your profession? What do you do?
So right now I lead a technical unit. I'm in an R&D organization, so Bayer Crop Science. My division is seed and traits.
Mhm.
And what I do on a really high level is how do we create the right plants, products that will yield the best in different environments at a
Mhm.
really high level, right? And
Mhm.
so in plants we have corn, soy, wheat, cotton, canola. And so my team, we work on continuing to improve the design and performance of these plants so that they can yield well and be tolerant to different diseases. And so
Mhm.
one disease in particular that we're focusing on is tar spot in corn. And so my team is focused on how do we deliver products to market that bring that tolerance.
Great. Tell me a little bit about how data gets used in your field.
I think so. Data is probably one of the most valuable things that we create besides the final product because it's also, you think about not just the product, but the data to support that product. And data is used to build out that product and design that product. So we start off our pipeline, our R&D pipeline is anywhere from 5 years to 10 years long. And
Mhm.
each year we're collecting data on the performance. We also collect data on the environment. Weather data is super critical, super important for our R&D uh, models. So we take all this data over years that then we can use it to inform how we sell a product.
This data is coming from, is it from the public data set or from all
No,
the
it's all private. So we work with a lot of genetic data. We work
Mhm.
with a lot of lab data
Mhm.
from lab experiments. We work with environmental data. So we think about weather,
Mhm.
soil.
Mhm.
Yep. We work with data that comes off of sensors in the field that we capture information on. We work with data off of combines that harvest products We work with UAV data, satellite data,
Mm.
hyperspec data, a
So
lot of
you're
diverse data types that build that whole
mhm,
package of
mhm.
information.
So you're trying to model the environment in which the crop will be grown, or you'll be modeling the type of crop that you want to grow itself.
Yeah, so we use the data to understand how our products are performing.
Hmm.
So how do we use it? A lot of the information for characterization of that environment, but then also of the product.
Hmm.
So both sides
Hmm.
data get used.
Help me understand. Maybe when you were studying, maybe there are some common examples of data science models that are used in a lot of the technology field. I'm familiar with a lot of categorization or clustering and those type of things. How does it differ when it comes to agriculture operation? The way that is it fundamentally in the modeling? Is it different, or it uses a lot of the common practices?
No, it's not fundamentally different at all. I think a lot of these models and tools that we're familiar with in different sectors, AI and large language models, they can totally be applied to the agriculture sector, right? When you
Mhm.
think of large genetic data sets, there are folks who are applying large language models to those. When you think of different environments, you could think of how you cluster them in different ways. Yep. It's very similar, and that's my experience has been how can we take these tools and models from other areas and apply them to
Mhm.
agriculture.
Is it common in your field to get people for some sort of exposure to agriculture field, or anybody with the data science degree or practice can come in?
Yeah, I think that it doesn't hurt to have some experience, but I think that what I like about my organization is they're pretty open to having people from different areas and you bring that different perspective. When I started in my role, I had never, even though I had a degree in agriculture and so on, I'd never had experience working with plant breeding, right? I
Mhm.
came from a soil science background and training and so on. Learning this whole sector was pretty new to me, but you learn a lot of it in the role and as you get more experience. I have colleagues who have very different backgrounds, but they can apply their knowledge to agriculture and figure out the problems
Mhm.
that we have to solve.
And what are the different branches one gets to work in? Like you said, the crop performance and all of that. Are there different branches within this?
Yeah. So you can work, we also have, there are a lot of companies that provide apps
Mhm.
and farmer facing
Yes,
technology and
yes,
tools.
yes, yes.
So you can work in that area as well. Like, how do you design models for that customer? Your customer
Mhm.
is the farmer. So I'm in the sector where we think in R&D, we think about how our customer is our commercial organization, but they're data scientists as well in the commercial organization of like, how do we think about and model information to give to our sales division? There's also a lot of cool data science that happens in production and product supply, how we create our products, how do we design and build our seed centers, our greenhouses. You have all these different sectors
Mhm.
where you can build models for those applications as well.
And what does a typical work week or a work day look like? What are some of the things that you will be doing typically? If you could lay out a picture of what the work life looks like.
Yeah. So probably for this audience, most relevant was my data scientist role. And part of, I would say, probably 80% of the time is working on projects with that are interdisciplinary projects with your stakeholders to design
Hmm.
models and applications to help support and deliver the business, right?
Hmm.
20% is working on your own new idea, continuing to have training. I would say maybe 10% of my time was also just continuing to network and build your business, understanding of the business, understanding of the problem, because it's such a long pipeline and there's so many steps involved. Understanding your sector is very
Hmm.
important, and the fastest way for that to happen, that you can't really learn that in a textbook, but is through meeting people and having conversations and asking the right questions. And I would say maybe 20 to 30% of my time would be in meetings, whether that is meeting with your
Mm,
stakeholders to continue to work on the project, provide updates, results, and so on. But then you also have some time there to work with your team development and things like town halls and understanding where your division
mm,
and so on is going and performing.
mhm, So it sounds like it's a mix of field versus desk job.
Yeah, it depends on the time of year. I think I always really enjoy going out to the field and learning.
Hmm.
I wouldn't say it's a significant part of
Okay.
my role, but
Okay.
I do like it because I think you gain a whole lot more context and understanding for what are the challenges and potential solutions for the problems that you're trying to solve, right? So
Hmm.
when you
Hmm.
actually see it in the real world and talk to different parts of the organization that are collecting data in the field or planting fields and so on, you get that additional information. So
Hmm.
I actually really like going out in the field, but if I were to say we're not to go out, I don't think that would be too terrible.
Hmm. Hmm. For what about somebody who is starting out, like when maybe fresh out of college, who are
Mhm.
starting out, where do they start out? What type of work they will get to do initially, and how does the career path look like from there, typically?
Yeah, so I think if you're fresh out of college, probably the analyst level role is where you would sit at. I think that you have to have a certain competency in coding
Hmm.
and building models and understanding how to design. I think having experience in someone comes to you with a problem and here's how you solved it and how did you bring people along? Because I think a big part too of being a successful scientist or person in general is in your career is your ability to communicate effectively and clearly. So don't
Hmm.
get lost in the jargon, but being able to explain what you're doing, even if it's as complicated as like a large language model, somebody in the commercial side of the organization who doesn't work with this every day, that's going to be super helpful.
That's awesome. So you mentioned about the coding skills. Let's double click a little bit on that. What are some of the
Mhm.
technical background one needs, whether it's a programming or any specific tools? Can you touch a little bit upon that?
Yeah, so I think that definitely Python is the most common
Uh-huh.
programming language that I've worked with in industry, although I actually came from working in R in school, in grad
Hmm.
school. But then also what's becoming a lot more common and popular too are SQL querying. So
Hmm.
being able to build out super efficient, elegant SQL queries as well in order to access your data. For the agriculture sector, I think machine learning, understanding your machine learning models, learning about your machine learning models, super important, useful. We use a lot of computer vision models, so deep learning as well. Starting
Hmm.
to explore and work in that large language model space, but that's still fairly new. We have a number of quantitative geneticists and bioinformaticians and biostatistics.
Hmm.
Statistics is also like a really important sector as well, that skill set to have.
Hmm.
You don't need all of those things, but I'm just giving you the diversity that's present in terms of the skill set in the
Hmm.
organization.
I'm super curious to learn about your journey. When did you discover that agriculture and data science is the world that I want to go in, or agriculture in general? Tell me
Yeah,
a little bit about what inspired you and what was your journey.
sure. So after college, I did a Princeton in Africa fellowship in Kenya for a year, which was
Hmm.
awesome. I was in a really rural location in Kitui, Kenya,
Hmm.
and I was in a region that was dominated by subsistence farmers. So farmers were really common. And so I got to work with them, interact with them, and I thought it was honestly it was really fascinating, right? There's a lot of really cool science that comes together
Hmm.
when you try to grow food. And I worked with some really talented mentors out there where I just learned a lot about sustainable agriculture and
Hmm.
the impact that growing food has on the environment. Because previous to that, I was focused on sustainable energy. And
Hmm.
so I decided, I was like, hey, you know what? This is actually a lot of very cool work here and it's super important. And I decided to go back to grad school and get into the agricultural engineering was my degree to switch into the field of agriculture, but use engineering as that segue because I had a degree in mechanical engineering before that. And in answering the question of what is sustainable agriculture, what is how can we definitively say one practice is better for the environment than the other, you
Mhm.
realize quickly that you need data and models to start
Mhm.
to simulate different practices and systems
Mhm.
to try to understand the impact to the environment of these different practices. And so that's what led me into the world of data and models. It wasn't that I want to do data science for the sake of data science. It was I wanted to use
Mhm.
these tools to answer the questions around sustainable agriculture.
Yep.
And I just saw that they had a lot of potential. That was when data science, machine learning was starting to become really accessible and grow. And I was like, I think there's so many cool questions and problems you could answer at the intersection of data science and agriculture. So
Mhm.
that's what got me started. And I just started to see more and more applications and uses of it as the field developed.
So you were always from the get-go interested in data science application in agriculture.
Yeah, I really was. I was always interested in like how we can apply these new tools to these age-old questions.
How common is the practices or the companies or organizations working in this field around the world? Is there a regional center like where these things happen more versus others? Is it mostly in Western countries? What?
Yeah, I think North America is definitely a hub for it, and but it's happening everywhere. I've collaborated. So I'm originally from Trinidad and Tobago, and I've had some collaborations with colleagues in Trinidad, but it really is becoming global. I've worked in East Africa with on some of the models that I've built in Tanzania, and the scientists there are
Mhm.
familiar with the models and work. So I think it's and because it's a lot of this stuff is open access and open
Mhm.
source, it's the accessibility is pretty broad. And the companies I work for are global. So we have
Mhm.
colleagues in APAC to North America. Australia is also like has a really strong background in the
Mhm.
application of data science in agriculture. So I would say, you know what,
Mhm.
at first I was like, maybe it's kind of North America or Western focused, but as I start to think about it, I'm like, I think it's actually quite global
That's good. That's good to hear.
because Brazil has a huge agriculture sector,
Mhm.
Asia, Australia, Europe. Yeah, it's pretty widespread.
Mhm. You touched upon it a little bit early on, but I wanted to double click a little bit more on what type of companies or is this only private sector companies where somebody from this background can be employed, or what are the different types of organizations where one can get in?
No, I think it's across the board. I think that there's obviously I'm in the private sector, but there's
Hmm.
a number of government organizations like global government consortiums. Summit is one of that they're doing a lot of really cool types of data science and agriculture. Academia, nonprofits are
Hmm.
also investing in these types of applications. There are startups as well.
Hmm.
So it's pretty diverse actually.
Let's get to the education part of it. What are some of
Mhm.
the majors or the background in undergrad or masters that are typically coming into this field? Are there very specific lane defined for this, or it's a mix, and what are those?
Yeah, I think it's a definitely a mix, right? Because in agriculture, it brings together so many different areas of expertise. My training was in soil science, actually, and I applied different machine learning algorithms in the field of soil science. There are folks who come from plant breeding background, plant biology background,
Mhm.
but using new tools like the data science models and tools in that field. There's also one field that I learned a lot from was like evolutionary biology, civil engineering. Also, I took courses in the civil engineering department that were pretty cool.
Mhm.
So, quite a diversity, I would say.
Is it necessary to have a doctorate in this, PhD in this field, or is there a norm to master's is enough?
No,
Like
not at
every.
all.
Mhm.
I don't think so at all. I don't know. There are probably a few people in my organization who have strictly like maybe like a master's in data science and so on, but for the most part, there are people with the degrees from the departments that I said, and we have some physicists and so on. So it's quite diverse, actually. What are the skills that you've learned in your specific field?
There's a trend that I notice generally if you see in the higher education that it's specialized, right? It's moving towards specialization.
Right.
Even
Yep.
within data science or any topic you take, there is more and more specialization. Do you think it is better to plan, keep it more generic when you're studying in your college than going narrow and specifically studying, let's say, data science in agriculture or data science in space or things like that? What's your view on that?
I think that like at that level, you're probably going to be asked to get narrow and go deep. And I think you really want to do that because you really want to like dig into a problem and understand it and be an expert in it. And I think that once you can exemplify that, hey, I can master or be an expert in this area,
Mhm,
it shows that you're competent in a way to master and become an expert in other areas, right? It's
mhm,
like how do how do you learn, how do you understand a problem enough to be able to find good solutions for it?
mhm,
And
mhm.
I think to do that, you really have to dive deep into the problem, right?
Very specific set of problems.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily, oh, I'm like getting too narrow, but it's I'm learning how to be an expert.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Does it happen that maybe data scientists or data professionals from other fields come into yours and vice versa? Is that common, or once you get into the domain, people tend to stay in that domain?
I would say I think people who shift into agriculture, they're pretty happy, but I think there's also a fair amount of movement. I wouldn't say a lot,
Hmm.
but there are people who've moved on and work at Amazon or Google or Microsoft and move into different sectors as well.
Mhm.
Movement for sure. Where I sit in R&D, I feel like we have folks probably a little bit more, it's not as broad. I
Hmm.
would say we have folks in those areas that I like environmental science, I would say, or
Hmm.
natural science who come in.
Hmm.
But I would say in other parts of in different organizations, say for the customer facing, farmer facing tools and apps and so on, you do have a broader group. You have people from the tech world who are in that space.
From the education to workforce, what are some of the common ways for people to get into the company? Different professions have different methods. Some professions you need to build a portfolio,
Hmm.
or some professions internship is
Yeah.
most common way. How should one plan from education to workforce?
So internships and co-ops never hurt, right? Like those are always really great opportunities to
Hmm.
get exposure, and a lot of them are paid, so that's great too. It's not
Hmm.
you don't take anything away from yourself to do those. Hey, I just applied to a role, a job that I saw that looked like it fit my skill set, and I was like, oh, that looks really cool, and I think I'd be good at that, and I just applied.
Hmm.
So that does happen as well. But yeah, so I think that there there are multiple ways, but if there's like a few companies or businesses that you're interested in getting jobs in, I would say when apply to those jobs and when those jobs come out, make sure you can like talk to the hiring manager to learn a little bit about the role and understand the company in general. That won't hurt. So I think the more you can talk with people who work at
Hmm.
that company, the better. And you
Hmm.
can do that at academic conferences are great places to meet folks from different industries. I think LinkedIn is a useful place to follow and have an idea of what type of work people are doing as well. Yep, those that's where I would start, I would say.
What are some of the skills that you think are essential or useful to develop outside of the formal education?
Yeah, going back to that communication
Mm.
piece, I think that's super critical. I think one of my one of the best things that I did in grad school was I took a journalism internship. I did a journalism,
That's-
and which was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed writing science
Mhm.
journalism, but I
Mhm.
would have to go and meet with different professors and experts in all different areas of research that I was not an expert in, I didn't know, but then I had to write an article about their work.
Mm.
So imagine talking to one of the top experts in the world on a piece and they're super deep and detailed in what they do, but then you have to describe their work in a couple hundred words for a general
Mhm.
audience.
Mhm.
And so being able to learn that skill of, okay, how do I take something super complicated and talk about it and share on it and simplify it was something that I think was
Mhm.
really helpful for me in industry, right?
Specific to today, there's so
Yeah.
much freely available public data sets, and then people build their
Yeah.
portfolios, they do modeling. Is there anything, those type of things, do you think any specific domain specific things that are out there that are helpful?
So I don't know how many people probably know this or not, but the whole like area of statistics was invented by in the field of agriculture. So there's a lot of data sets, like agricultural data sets
Mm-hmm.
out there, publicly available data sets that you can, and real world data too, that you can use to start working on models with.
Yeah. One of the common things that I'm very interested in learning is usually people are very focused or generally do the good research on the education, the more hard skill sets that you need. But I think every profession has a certain
Yeah.
personality required. Is there any specific, do you identify that a personality that is suitable for this field? Do you see anything like that? That, oh, these are
For,
the type of people who would
for
like it.
just in data science in general, or like data science and agriculture?
In agriculture field, yes.
I don't know about like a specific personality necessarily, but a lot of us, I didn't grow up on a farm and I'm working in a field that's super based on a farm. You gotta have a certain amount of curiosity to learn new things and be in new spaces. I think being interested in plants and biology and that
Mm-hmm.
sort of thing doesn't hurt at all. But I think having that curiosity for learning new things, I think important skill set to have. So I think that what I really enjoy about the people that I work with is that everyone's like really curious and nerds out on some aspect of something
Mm-hmm.
that you've never heard of, which is a lot of fun to learn from other people.
Do you interface with farmers directly as well? Do you get to see how your work gets utilized, or do you have to explain to them? And do you have any interface with them, the end users?
Yeah, we do. We do. We bring farmers in for them to learn about the type of
Hmm.
work that we do. We also do field tours sometimes, and you get out to meet with farmers and understand kind of the challenges that they're facing, how the season went, and so on. So, yeah, for sure. We're very customer focused, right? So
Hmm.
we
Hmm.
want to get that interaction.
Hmm. That's amazing. One of the fears or the anxieties right now is with the AI boom. A lot of people, especially youngsters who are probably now starting out college or in high school, don't know what the shape of career is going to be or the professions are going to
Yeah.
change drastically. Where do you see the in the agriculture field, where do you see the focus will be in future, or where it is heading, or are there any areas that you think that we will see a lot of growth and focus and investments?
So I think that there's going to be a lot of, as we get more robotics and automation and
Hmm.
sensors. When you think of the Internet of Things, IoT devices, and I think we've only scratched the surface of what we're doing today with satellite imagery, with UAV imagery, and sensors in fields and around.
Hmm.
So I think that's an area that's going to grow a lot is how we are leveraging all these different sensors to
Hmm.
help us understand our environment,
Hmm.
predict our environment, and make better decisions. I don't think, honestly, I think with the technology and what's going on, we're going to have even more roles in this space, not less. I think there's so much more we can do. There's a
Hmm.
lot that today we get bogged down in trying to do those more mundane operations, but I think that we're going to get better at automating those, and then we can think of what are those cool questions that we want to answer and how we're going to leverage the data. At least that's the space that I'm excited about and I want to be in.
Finally, any resources that you think is helpful for somebody who wants to learn more? Like they haven't yet decided, somebody who maybe
Hmm.
likes biology, they haven't decided which way to go,
Yep.
or somebody who likes data and they don't know that they can go into agriculture. So, what are very early stage good books or websites or any other
Yeah.
resources?
So the science societies definitely do a lot of outreach.
Hmm.
And so if you're at a university that, well, actually, find out if you're at a land grant university or where is the land grant university in your state. Each state has one. They're
Hmm.
going to have a lot of resources on agriculture in general.
Hmm.
But then you can start to hone in on what are the data science and those aspects happening in the field of agriculture. There's a lot of influencers and folks online now,
Hmm.
either whether it's through Twitter or X or TikTok and so on, where you can start following and seeing what does that day to day and what does that world look like.
Hmm.
I've had a lot of folks come just reach out to chat and learn about, okay, what it is you do, what is that sector. So finding somebody in that field.
Hmm.
Younger folks, kids, I think that the 4-H program in the US is a really great resource and it's just a lot of fun. I know a lot of kids do it for, I'm looking it up right now, for they raise chickens or goats or so on and get that, it's kind of a youth development program. So you have, from anywhere from your academic association. So like I'm a member of the Tri-Societies, Agronomy, Crop, Soil Science,
Hmm.
and we go to those conferences every year. Then you have the social media outlet, which is great. But then finding somebody to meet with and talk to in the industry and just learn about their experience, what it
Hmm.
is they do, that's going to be the most helpful, I think. And
Hmm.
then another thing to know is that the area is, we're constantly evolving, right? So I think that every role that I've been in the sector or have applied to didn't exist 5 years ago. And just understanding that and the aspect that things are changing is tempers your expectations a little bit of like how much you're going to fully understand something before
Hmm.
it changes.
Hmm. Hmm. Are there any conferences that students can go in?
Yeah, yeah. The conferences that I mentioned, those academic conferences are all open to students. And then just thinking about your outreach type programs too, the US government does a number of these types of outreach programs
Mhm.
as well. Find those. A lot of it will probably be centered as well, collaboration, or the land grant university will be collaborating with the local or state or federal government to run programs. So that's also a great resource.
And magazines, and sometimes there are
Hmm.
journals and stuff like that. Are there any?
Journals, yep, yep. Journals
Mhm.
are definitely, the science societies put out their journals
Mhm.
as well.
Mhm. Within the US, is there a hub for agriculture tech specifically?
I would say it's right here in St. Louis, which is awesome. I think St. Louis is definitely an ag tech hub for the US.
Oh,
Sure.
cool. Thank you so much, Amanda. This was a very good set of information for somebody who doesn't know anything about the
Yeah,
field. Thanks for coming out and sharing your
happy
experience
to help.
and knowledge. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
That's it for today's episode of Career Calling. I hope you found it helpful. I'll be back soon with more stories of professions from all walks of life to help you find your calling. Until then, don't forget to subscribe and spread the word.